Good evening. Parents in British Columbia are still entitled to worry about whether the recommendations brought forth by the BC School Trustees Association and Barry Sullivan for the government will in fact help to stop abuse of children in schools by teachers. We're going to look at that tonight with Elsie McMurphy, BC Teachers Federation, and with Eric Buckley of the School Trustees. But here's Steve with the rundown.
How do we protect our children from sexual abuse in the classroom? How far can the law go before infringing on the rights of our teachers? In the studio with Webster, Eric Buckley, president of the BC School Trustees Association, and Elsie McMurphy, president of the BC Teachers Federation. Also tonight, part 4 of our series on native land claims. Tonight, Bob Pascoe, chief of the Jack Creek Band, and their fight against Canadian National. A vitamin a day keeps the doctor away. That at least according to one crusader who says vitamins and the right food will prevent 85% of the cancer we suffer. Coming up with Webster, Dr. Earl Mindell, author of The Pill Bible.
I'm highly suspicious of people who flog vitamins, one of the greatest wastes of money in North America. And yet here's a man born in Winnipeg who sold 3 million books and comes out with such arrant nonsense sometimes as, for instance, you might make salt and sugar available only by prescription.
Right.
Put warning labels on all junk food.
Right.
Stop eating Twinkies, ding-dongs, white bread, no more bacon and eggs. And he adds this lovely little gem, which is that men who are 5'8" and shorter...
I didn't mean you, Jack.
...live longer than those who are over 6 feet.
That's true.
What's that got to do with vitamins?
Well, it doesn't. But actually, if you want to live longer, it's better to be small and eat less.
I see. How short are you?
Unfortunately, I'm 5'7".
5'7", so you're on the long-lived side.
I'm on the long-lived
Now, but seriously, Earl Mindell, and I interviewed you 25 years ago, and you didn't look any older then than you do now.
Thank you.
It is a racket. Look at the
What's
people who go out and buy vitamins, and they excrete the vitamins without them doing them any good whatsoever.
No, that's not true.
My doctor tells me that, and my doctor is right.
Does your doctor also tell you that if you smoke cigarettes, you need beta-carotene or provitamin A? Does your doctor tell you that every cigarette you smoke causes a loss of 50 to 100 milligrams of vitamin C?
Are you telling me if I take an extra 100 milligrams of vitamin C and take my beta-carotene that I can smoke with impunity?
No, but you can smoke longer.
You mean longer before it kills me?
Right.
And I mustn't have any coffee?
Well, coffee, you see, actually, the interesting thing about coffee, coffee stimulates the desire for nicotine, but coffee does cause a loss of things like potassium.
You'll be telling me next that water's dangerous for me.
Some water, yes, it is.
What water?
Well, most of the municipal water supplies in North America, they're okay for humans to drink, but don't put your tropical fish in because it kills them. I'm working on a new book that'll be out next year called Unsafe at Any Meal. It's going to talk about what's in our water supply.
Errol, you have a complex. Well, I'll tell you what it is.
What is it?
You're only 5'7",
yes,
for a start.
Right.
And one, you want to live forever, don't you?
Well, I don't know if I want to live forever, but I'd like to live a long, healthy life.
There was something that we did on the promo just now. I probably can't find it in the material.
Go ahead.
That there are certain things you can take which can cure cancer.
Well, not cure, Jack.
Because you sound like a charlatan the moment you say that.
No, charlatans, that's in Prince Edward Island.
Ah,
charlatan, very good. No, actually, you can prevent cancer in about 80% of cases. I mentioned that beta-carotene. We know that beta-carotene is a good preventative against lung cancer.
So I rush out now and buy a gallon of beta-carotene?
No, it comes in tablets.
Bought from your chain of vitamin stores?
No, my chain of vitamin stores in the United States. You can't buy it there.
Oh, you're going to sell franchises up here?
No, we just stay in only in California.
Okay, now seriously about vitamins.
I got to talk about selenium, though. Selenium is a mineral that also protects us against some types of cancer, too.
Where do I get my selenium?
Onions and garlic are the best natural sources.
Well, horses in France live longer than anywhere else in the world because there are so many wild onions in the fields. Did you know that?
Very good, Jack.
And onions are very good for your heart, and garlic's very bad for your breath and very good for your heart.
Well, actually, you can get deodorized garlic as a supplement, so it doesn't cause the bad breath.
You call these things in the States food supplements.
That's right.
What do we call them in Canada?
Drugs, which I never can understand. You can buy aspirin with codeine in Canada. You can't buy that in the United States without a prescription.
What's wrong with aspirin with codeine if you need aspirin with codeine?
Yeah, but it's a narcotic. So in the United States, it's considered a prescription drug, and here it is an over-the-counter drug. But what I can understand is why don't they allow things like amino acids, tryptophan, lysine, phenylalanine, and here's another one, too, that people don't realize. The fish oil supplements, EPA and DHA from salmon oil. which have shown to really decrease the incidence of heart disease, is not available in Canada as a supplement.
Shown really to have decreased the incidence of heart disease.
Absolutely.
Are there studies to support that?
Absolutely. There's 48 medical studies that do support this. It seems to protect the heart from the platelets, which are tiny disc-shaped cells, from clumping together. You know, our doctors recommend taking aspirin after having a heart attack.
Right.
Well, this is the same
The
thing.
beta blockers.
Yeah, it's the same thing that this does to the fish oil, does the same thing as the aspirin.
Yeah, but I mean, you're probably one of these mega vitamin kids that want us to go out and buy 10,000 bottles of stuff.
No, not at all.
15 pills.
Jack,
Lots of cooks in Hollywood do it. What do you do?
Here it is.
What's this?
I brought a little vitamin pack for you. You
vitamin
see?
pack,
It has
okay.
a multiple vitamin, a vitamin E, a vitamin C, and a mineral. You just take a pack like that with food, and you feel terrific.
This will cure everything that's
No,
wrong
it
with
does
it.
not cure. It makes your body, actually have more energy.
What does that cost?
This costs about, I'd say, 10 cents a day.
And if I take one of these a day, I'll live forever. One of these packages a
I
day.
can't guarantee you're going to live
You
forever.
can't guarantee
No,
you're
I
going to live
can't do
forever.
that. No.
Well, I don't know. You must admit yourself that there's lots of vitamins that are bought by people in a moment of mental weakness, and they just rot on the shelf.
Well, yes, I think a lot of people don't understand what vitamins are all about. They think that it's going to replace a bad diet, and it doesn't do that. And it's not a pep pill or energy thing. But if you take it correctly with eating good foods and exercising, it does produce what we call optimal health.
If I eat good foods and exercise, I don't need your vitamins at all.
If you don't smoke, if you don't drink alcohol, if you're not under stress, you don't use prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs, maybe.
Now, that's ridiculous. I mean, I don't smoke. Everybody knows
Of
that.
course you don't smoke. Well,
And everybody knows I don't drink.
Naturally.
And everybody knows that this is a perfectly simple job where you just sit and
no
yak.
stress, no
No
stress.
stress
Of course,
whatsoever.
I know that, absolutely.
I mean, it's money for old rope. Keep your vitamins. Take them back again. All right, but we are ignorant. What do you recommend that you take a day? This is what you recommend.
I call it the MVP, the Mindell Vitamin Program, which is basically a multiple.
And if I have a bad day at the office, I take a double dose so that my system is properly alleviated?
Well, let's say this. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to take it morning and evening with food. Yes, you will feel better.
What's a ding-dong?
A ding-dong. You don't know what a ding-dong is?
No.
It's a little cupcake. Let's see, I can't remember what it is in Canada, in a cellophane wrapper, and I recommend eating the wrapper than what's inside.
The wrapper's better
It's
for
better
you.
for you, yes. More fiber. More fiber.
Than the,
Right.
It's very important, however, to look after, what's the word to use it? Keep yourself regular. That's
Absolutely.
the most important thing of all.
Absolutely, and you can do that by drinking more pure water and getting more fiber in your diet.
Excuse me. I've got to get bottled water now.
No, but I think you can buy a filtration device that gets rid of most of the impurities in the water.
You mean on your tap?
Right.
You see, no wonder you Americans are so soft. You're not willing to take a chance on life at all. 3 million books you've sold.
3 million.
It's incredible, isn't it? Well, I'm exhausted.
Not bad from a kid from Winnipeg. The
North End of Winnipeg.
The north end of Winnipeg.
5'7" kid from the North End of Winnipeg.
Yeah, Alan Bly and David Steinberg and I, we're all from the north end.
You make more money than they do. If you've got questions about vitamins, you can be more serious than I am about vitamins. Call now, after the break. You're a fanatic on salt, too.
Absolutely. The average person in North America eats a bowling ball of salt a year, 7 kilos. If we could cut that to 3 grams a day, we could probably cut down a third of the high blood pressure.
You mean they add salt to everything?
No, it's in everything, Jack.
You mean you eat it whether you like it or not?
That's right. You look on the labels of all the foods and it'll tell you how much salt. Although in Canada, the labeling requirements are not as stringent as in the United States.
But you'd want junk food labeled.
Absolutely. I think when you go into a fast food restaurant, there should be a warning label, caution, this food is dangerous to your health. And it really is. High fat, salt, sugar, and refined carbohydrates. No nutrients at all.
You live in spinach salad, raw carrots, betatin, all the rest of that garbage, do you?
Good stuff.
Good stuff. You don't exercise?
Yeah, of course I exercise.
As a matter of fact, how old are you?
46.
We could pass for 50. Oh, God.
Jack, do you want to hear the best exercise?
Yes.
You want to hear this? I recommend active sex, 20 minutes as the best exercise going. It burns up to 200 calories. Try it 3 times a day.
200 calories 3 times. How many times have you been married?
Just once.
Just once. Oh, that's difficult. Change. That's unusual for an American
That's
from
true.
California.
That's true.
Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack.
Yes.
I'm wondering if Dr. Mindell can tell me why when I get onto a vitamin supplement program, I feel so tired.
I can't, but usually just change brands if that's your problem. When do you take your vitamins? You take them with food or on an empty
Yeah,
stomach?
I take them with food. I've tried different times of day.
Uh-huh.
I've tried different
Okay,
types of vitamins, and if I really get into a vitamin program, I just feel so tired I can't stay on them.
That's very unusual, but listen, anything can happen.
If I were you, I'd stop the vitamin program, eat some decent food, and get out and some exercise. And
That's
get married again.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. I was wondering if I could get your impression on a product called Ephemal, oil of evening
Yes,
primrose.
oil of evening primrose is a very important supplement. This is used for some type of eczema, which
Behind the ears?
No, you swallow it, Jack.
Oh.
And also, it is becoming very well known for different things. Even we're talking about maybe possibly migraine headaches too. So,
Oil of evening primrose.
oil of evening primrose. Yes.
That'll cost a bucket, won't it?
It is fairly expensive, but
I'll bet you it is.
it's much less.
High profit item.
I don't know. I'm not really familiar.
You don't sell oil of evening primrose.
No, not in Canada. I don't
But you
know.
sell it in the States.
Yes, available in the States.
Sounds magnificent. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I was wondering if I could have the address of where I could buy the vitamins in the little clear pack.
Well, those are available anywhere in Canada. Most of the health food stores, the vitamin stores, or the pharmacies have these packs.
Daily packs.
Yeah,
of
the
items,
daily packs, yeah.
According to the Mindell formula.
Well, I don't
Where
know.
is the address?
No,
Any drugstore. We're not giving too many plugs.
it's available quite easily available
Thank
in
you.
Canada.
Go ahead, please. Hello.
Dr. Mindell?
Yes.
My question is in reference to my condition in the eyes. I've been getting spots before the eyes, and I've been to all sorts of doctors, and they've been they haven't been able to give me any
Spots in the
answers
eyes.
whatsoever.
Spots in the eyes. Well, let me tell you that you should seek medical help on that, because that could be due to a lot of things.
Yeah, it could
I
be-
have.
Okay, what do they say?
Well, for
They've
the-
given me no conclusions whatsoever.
Have you got any pills that will make spots before the eyes disappear? Yes
Not-
or no?
No.
Thank you.
Absolutely not.
Next one. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yep.
Hello, Dr. Mandel?
Yes.
Speak up, please,
go ahead.
old boy.
Hello? Yes?
Yes, yes.
I'm labeled as like a manic depressive and schizophrenic because I can't sleep naturally.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah.
So what's the question?
What's the question? He wants you to help him sleep with
Oh, I see.
drugs.
Well, somebody like that should be under medical supervision.
Yeah,
but-
I am under medical supervision.
Okay. Do you know there is? You can talk to your doctor about tryptophan. You'll have to
No,
go.
I've tried that before.
Okay.
I've tried that before, but the first couple of days I slept, but then on the third day it just got worse.
Okay. Well, this is something you'd have to check with a doctor.
Thank you. Go ahead from Parksville.
Yes, hello. I'm phoning in connection with your talk show here. Why is it that North Americans are obsessed with vitamins, whereas the rest of the world, which I've traveled, don't seem to use them at all?
Well, that's not quite true. Actually, the North American diet is so bad that there's a reason for supplementation. Supplements are not as well known in other countries, but it is starting. Actually, my book is in 8 different languages now, so almost everywhere. And for instance, Russia is very into vitamins as well. But I think we're more progressive when it comes to health. Italy, for instance, smoking went up 15% last year. Well, in the United States and Canada, it's decreasing quite significantly.
You don't like doctors, do you?
My feeling is that most doctors, unfortunately, don't know anything about prevention, and I think that they should become more preventative-oriented instead of waiting until something happens.
They use the unnecessary operations and serious drug side effects due to polypharmaceuticals and doctor-caused diseases.
Absolutely right.
What are the doctor-caused diseases?
They're called iatrogenic diseases, and a good example is 2,000 people in the United States die from the anesthesia that is administered before the operation.
Well, you're not going to cut me open without an anesthetic.
No, but some of the drugs that they use are pretty dangerous.
Yeah. Well, no operations for me. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I've been giving my daughter L-lysine for quite a few years because she has a history of cold sores
Yep.
and mouth ulcers.
Did you get it in the United States?
I was getting it in Canada, but now I can't.
Right,
Could you
it's
tell me
ridiculous.
why?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's what we were talking about. All amino acids in Canada are not allowed, and L-lysine is a preventative against cold sores or fever blisters, or it can be used if you have the problem. And I think people should write their MLAs and tell them this is ridiculous.
L-lysine.
L-lysine.
This is medically approved as well.
Absolutely.
I presume it's pharmaceutically approved.
Absolutely, and it should be available, and it's not available in this country, and I don't understand it.
Well, it was available up until a few months ago.
I know,
because I've been buying it.
They stopped
and my
it.
druggist told me when I went to get some more that they've taken it off the market because it's making too many claims.
Okay, well, what you do is help the Washington state economy, go across the border and buy it over there. Don't help British Columbia, help Washington.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hello. I'm wondering about what vitamins are in that little package, first of all, and the sizes of them, and then also what the doctor thinks about Linus Pauling and his vitamin C.
Oh, vitamin C.
Yeah, well, I think vitamin C is the most important vitamin we have, and I've spent some time with Pauling. He feels that if we could get people to take just 1,000 milligrams of C a day, we could prevent 75% of the cancers. I don't know if I'd go that far, but the pack that I talk about has a multiple vitamin, an extra C, an E, and a mineral. And minerals are important: calcium, magnesium,
trace
zinc.
minerals?
Yes, the trace minerals, right.
Zinc. Well, that sounds good. I don't know they're selling in packages here.
No, they're available here, sure.
Sure, all right. Never seen them. And I shop for my vitamins every day. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I have two questions.
Carry on.
The first question is vitamin E a good vitamin to take before you're working out as far as muscle tone? And the second question is, what is zinc good for?
Okay, E has nothing to do with muscle tone, but E is a very important nutrient. And most of the research was done here, Jack, in Canada, London, Ontario. The Dr. Schutz have done incredible research.
That was supposed to be for heart disease, wasn't
Yes,
it?
that's right. It is absolutely
And for
right.
your sex life.
Well, only if you're a laboratory rat, to tell you the truth.
That's the only way it's ever been proven.
Right.
Good. Something wrong here. I'm doing something wrong. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jay.
Yes.
To your guest, is there any vitamin that will help you basically sleep if you're on acid pills without trying to get off the acid pills?
When you say acid pills, you're talking about
Well, I'm talking about
Tagamet?
Mizolam and Oxapam and...
Okay, I'm not from. You're talking about when you say acid. You mean to decrease the acid, like the Zan?
That's right.
The Tagamet and Zantac.
Yes.
Okay.
Just to get away from
Okay.
it.
Well, calcium.
Because
Okay, we
All right,
understand.
calcium and magnesium are excellent relaxants that can be taken at bedtime. And if you can find tryptophan, if you have to go across the United States to buy it, it works well as a sleep aid.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm the world's worst sleeper. Go ahead, please.
And the doctor,
Yep.
can you recommend any vitamins to boost the immune system, like in AIDS?
Well, let me say this. There's nothing, of course, that we know that's specifically for AIDS, but there has been some books out talking about how you can bolster your immune system. We know that vitamin C, some of the B complex, and some of the amino acids help to do this. But there's nothing specifically for AIDS that I know of.
Okay, plug your meeting because it's from the Special Olympics.
7:30, Jack, on Saturday night at the Hyatt at the Plaza Ballroom, and all the proceeds are going to the BC Special Olympics. So come on by at 7:30. My books will be available too.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm glad you're going to sell another couple. That just makes me really
Well,
happy indeed.
no, actually,
But don't forget, tell them that old Webster says that 80% of all money spent in vitamins is wasted.
No, it's the other way around, Jack.
You sure?
Yes.
Thanks to Earl Mindell. Now to a serious topic after the break. Last night, Barry Sullivan, the lawyer who had done an inquiry into the sexual abuse of children by school board employees, presented his recommendations to government. And the key one that sticks in everybody's mind was a criminal record check for all applicants of new employees to which teachers would have to consent. That's new teachers would have to consent, and fairly strict discipline, even where a teacher might be acquitted of a charge, if there were circumstances surrounding it which led to certain proven facts, that person should not even then be allowed to teach in the school district. These are recommendations. Tonight I've got Eric Buckley, who's the president of the BC School Trustees Association, which has done its own recommendations, and somebody vitally interested, Elsie McMurphy, the president of the BC Teachers Federation. Is there anything in the government, in the Sullivan report, that you find obnoxious or unacceptable at all, Mr. Buckley?
No, I wouldn't say that, but one also has to remember that the Sullivan report is simply one of two reports that were tabled yesterday. The second one, which we consider to be of equal if not greater significance, is the report of the Joint Task Force on Child Abuse, which was started about a year ago, including teachers, trustees, and government officials. And in total, there are 130 some odd recommendations, all dealing with a very complex issue and dealing with it in a very thorough way, in my opinion.
I can believe that, but for the point of view of public consumption, the first thing we must concentrate on, Elsie and Eric, is the fact that parents want assurance that in future there will be no repetition of complaints not being properly investigated, and parents given assurances that such and such a teacher would never teach again when in fact they did. Have you got anything in these task force reports which will make sure that every allegation is properly investigated, not by the school?
I think that both reports, and certainly much of the publicity that has surrounded these kind of events over the past year, will ensure that not only these kinds of things are investigated within the school system, but that the students themselves, their parents, and people outside the school system as well, where these kinds of situations of abuse occur, will be followed up, I think, in a much more diligent manner than perhaps they have been in the past. And I think that this kind of sensitivity, this kind of awareness that exists in the province now is in the main a good thing. As you will appreciate, there are dangers in it as well, the kind of false allegations that might be made, or witch hunts, yes. And I think we have to be very careful with how the allegations are handled. But I think one of the most important things is the new awareness, the new knowledge that everyone has, including children, of their rights to be free from abuse.
So all the sensational publicity may well have done some good for the moment. Is that not correct?
Well, let's not forget, too, that our two associations and the Ministry of Education, as long as 4 years ago, recognized that there was a problem in this area, and we began working very quietly to try and do something about it. One of the things we jointly introduced was the child abuse prevention programs, which have been in the schools now for nearly 2 years. And I would dare say that much of the cause of the recent disclosures of child abuse are a direct result of those initiatives that we started on up to 4 years ago.
And as a direct result of some sensational publicity which led to other reports being made and other cases coming to light.
Exactly. The publicity is fine. The sensationalism, I don't think, adds to solving the problem.
Mind you, you couldn't sensationalize what happened in certain trials. All you have to do is give the facts and people are shocked and horrified.
Well, no, I disagree. There was some sensationalism that I think was out of order, in this sense that prior to these recommendations, it was not widely known that, in fact, the school systems were very severely hampered in their ability to deal with these issues. And if a school board takes the point of view, and if teachers take the point of view that their primary obligation is for the safety and the protection of the child in the classroom, if the legal and administrative procedures don't allow the obtaining of a conviction of an offender, then the next best thing is the removal from the system of that offender.
Providing that removal isn't done on an ad hoc basis and he's passed around from school board to school board to school board to school board, as has happened. That was the real scandal, wasn't it?
I agree that that was scandalous, but you have to recognize that that happened as a result of there being no other resort available to protect the children in the school system in a particular
I can't accept
jurisdiction.
that. Can you accept that? The Family and Child Relations Act. Any responsible person acting in a reasonable manner to make a complaint involving the care and protection of children was protected even in the past from prosecution, had immunity.
And certainly the law as it exists now is that if there is any kind of reasonable suspicion, the individual is required to report that to the Ministry of Human Resources.
And I gather from the various sets of recommendations that now there would have to be a very confidential chain of need-to-know people.
If the recommendations are implemented.
Well, should they be implemented?
Well, one of the things that we're certainly very supportive of is the establishment of an independent agency to do the kind of record checks that we certainly think should be done. We have great concerns about the use of information, the confidentiality of the information.
I can understand that.
And we think it's one of the paramount considerations in establishing such an independent agency would have to be those safeguards, because I'm sure you know the concerns that we have about protecting the rights of the individual, which I'm not suggesting that individuals should be protected at the expense of any child who's in any kind of an abusive situation at all. But on the other hand, I don't think we can leave ourselves vulnerable to the potential that exists for witch hunts.
The Sullivan report suggests that you and the BC Teachers Federation would have to amend your code of ethics, because your code at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, says I can't complain about another teacher unless I've told them.
No, that's not correct. We do have that in our code of ethics. It says that teachers may not criticize the conduct of a colleague without talking to the colleague first. But our code of ethics, of course, is now and has always been second to the law of the land. And as I mentioned earlier, the law is that if you have suspicions, you report them to MHR, or it's now called MASH, Ministry of Social Services and Housing.
Yeah.
But what we did 2 years ago was add an addendum to our code of ethics to make that very, very clear to anyone who thought there might possibly be that conflict.
Oh, good. That's already been clarified.
Yes, that was done 2 years ago at our AGM annual general meeting 2 years ago. We said it specifically, it shall not be considered an offense under the code of ethics to report.
But to both of you, if there's a reasonable suspicion, and will there be any future attempts, as happened in the past, just to move the suspected teacher to another school board? Will that be possible if your recommendations are taken into consideration?
Absolutely not. And the recommendations, of course, recognize the fact that there have been identified, as a result of these studies, flaws at all levels of the operation and governance of the school system, right up to the legislative level. And the concern of all of the people who have participated in these studies is that we jointly must commit ourselves to filling those gaps and removing those flaws. We learned from the past experience primarily that it should not be repeated, and that we should do everything we possibly can to ensure that it's not repeated.
Now, about the criminal record checks, is everybody in agreement on the recommendations that this would mean, if this is done, and we must remember these are only recommendations, that every person applying for a teaching job would have to, one, answer questions about criminal record, if any, and be prepared to have that record looked at?
Well, I think some of the recommendations go beyond that. It suggests that entrance into a teacher training program, for example, would have to be made aware of the requirements, or perhaps might have a criminal records check done at that time.
You think that'd be a good thing?
Well, I think, again, as long as some of the safeguards are there, I think that prospective employees or people who are wanting to enter teaching or any other position in which we have a trust responsibility with young children or vulnerable adults. I think we need to look at that as part of the responsibility of the profession.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think we also have to remember that all of the criminal records checks, the screening, the registries, and everything else are less successful than the prevention programs, the awareness, and I think that those are the more important things that we need to emphasize.
In the long
because
run.
Even if you have all of the checks and records and balances, there are still people who I'm sure will slip through that net.
The main thing is, though, that the moment suspicions arrive or a complaint is made, that it's investigated instantly, not necessarily by the school board. Is that right?
That's a possibility, right. And one of the serious flaws that have been identified is the fact that there is no coordination of the efforts of the many agencies that have partial jurisdiction.
Yeah, they may know certain things.
Exactly.
And one of the other...
And it's been very, very difficult for school boards to acquire information that would support an action under misconduct or a dismissal under misconduct, simply because other investigating agencies who collect the information won't release it.
But you are recommending in both reports that this information be available on a very confidential basis between all involved, Ministry of Human Resources, MASH, the Education Department, the Attorney General's Department, the BC Teachers Federation, the BC School Trustees Association.
Well, the superintendent of the school district involved.
On a need to know.
Yes.
Well, this is where perhaps we might have some disagreement. This is an area that I would like to investigate a little farther, because I have some concerns about the degree and the level to which the information should be made available.
If you spread it too wide, it'll become a whole network of a witch hunt.
Yes, yes.
And we recognize the concerns about
yes.
that.
Good.
And we're prepared to see that safeguards are put in place to prevent the concerns occurring that Elsie's referring to.
Okay, steps are certainly being taken without too much delay, I would say. What the government will eventually do with the recommendations is something else again. But I'm going to take calls to Eric Buckley and to Elsie McMurphy. McMurphy. That's an unusual name. After the break. with Mr. Buckley and Elsie McMurphy, I want to give you, for instance, just the one point to demonstrate it. A teacher may be charged. He may be acquitted on a technicality, but medical evidence produced during that trial may show that he is, in fact, a pedophile. Under the School Act at the moment, what could you do in such a case?
If the school board involved had made the choice to proceed under the section of the Act that allows dismissal of a person convicted of a criminal offense, and there is not a conviction, then the School Act regulations require that that teacher must be reinstated in his or her former position.
And now you're looking at a system whereby in such a case, such an acquittal could still lead to dismissal or decertification of the teacher.
Well, we are saying that we must find a mechanism by which we can judge that a person is unfit to be a member of the teaching profession and therefore be removed from that profession without having to convict them as guilty of a criminal offense.
Elsie?
Well, again, this is perhaps an area where we disagree as to how the law can be interpreted. Certainly there are two provisions in the School Act that allow the board the opportunity to suspend a teacher, and one is for misconduct and the other is for a criminal charge. And it's the opinion of the trustees that it is not possible to pursue one and then move to the other. And
you would disagree with them on that?
And certainly the recommendation in the report makes it clear that both are available.
Could I just address that? Not that we have chosen to abandon the right to pursue a negligence charge or misconduct charge while a criminal proceeding is going on, but the fact that any action that we would take to collect evidence to support a misconduct charge while a criminal investigation is going on is viewed as an interference in the criminal process, in a criminal investigation.
The important thing is that you're all agreed, including Sullivan, that this is an area that must be tackled, clarified, and allowed to be dealt with.
We would agree on that.
Go ahead, please.
Jack?
Yes.
Why aren't you taking these two people to task? They're protecting these pedophiles.
Pedophiles.
Mrs. Murphy, or whatever her name is, and this other person who's in the school trustees. I mean,
What do you mean taking them to task?
Take them to task. Ask them why the hell these people can move from one district to the other and make sure that it won't happen in the future.
I've already asked that question.
And they're not giving you a proper answer.
Give me the answer.
The proper answer is that the school districts do not have the resources to be able to collect the evidence necessary to get final decision.
No. I must admit, I don't think you I asked you the question earlier, and you gave me the answer. In certain celebrated, sensationalized cases, it became obvious that at least one teacher went with knowledge of other officials from school board to school board to school board and school board, right? And continued his depredations.
The reason for that was that information in the possession of some individuals was not passed on to other individuals who have jurisdiction over those same problems.
Somebody failed in their duty.
That is clear.
Yes. And what the public wanted to see, and this man is right, is somebody punished for that failure in duty.
Well,
because as I said, you agreed, there's always been the provision whereby you could make a reasonable complaint and have immunity.
Yes.
That is another issue. How do you ferret out the people who are responsible for the misfeasance or malfeasance as administrators and managers? I don't know. That hasn't been the subject of this
I've got one
particular
recommendation
study.
I'll give you, that where a complaint and an allegation is made against a teacher, that investigation must go to the police in the very first instance with all the other agencies involved.
In my understanding, it always does.
No, there have been cases where the teachers say, where the principal might say, look, I don't want your child to go through this terrible traumatic experience. I will guarantee to you that that teacher will never teach again, moves to another district.
Well, I don't think that's appropriate.
It has happened.
If it's happened, it has to stop happening. But what I'm saying is, it's not going to be possible to go back over the last 10 or 15 years and ferret out all of those circumstances and deal with them on that basis.
Except that one of the recommendations in Sullivan's report is that the 6-month time limit for complaint against a teacher should also be lifted. Do you agree with that?
Well, there are two recommendations in the Sullivan report that apply specifically to our code of ethics. And that's one of them, and the other is to make it even more clear that it is an offense, for example, not to charge someone who you suspect of
thanks for your call, sir.
Of abuse against a child, and certainly that's, we want to look at that as an organization.
Good. He hung up in my ear. He was annoyed at me. I thought you made that clear, but I mean that's what really upset the public. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I wonder what is going to be done to protect a teacher, if a student has a grudge against that particular teacher, we've heard of these cases where some of these teenagers can be really vindictive, and of course the parents would think that their dear little soul wouldn't do these things.
Yeah, that is one of our greatest concerns, and that is why I, at the outset, said we have to make sure that any of these investigations or these agencies or independent boards or whatever it might be have very clear and very deliberate safeguards built into them.
Let me put it to you, Elsie, it's no different than the investigation of any other believed offense against the law.
No,
An allegation is made, the police investigate, the Crown decides whether or not to pursue on the basis of evidence.
That's correct. But for example, if you're charged, for example, with robbing a bank, you're not in a position of trust and responsibility with children. And when those kinds of allegations are made, if they become public and if they are proven false, I guess my concern is that by then it's too late. The reputation of the individual is destroyed.
Well, it's a chance that teachers must take.
That's correct, and I'm not suggesting in any way that we should protect the rights of the teacher over the rights of the child. What I'm saying is we have to make sure the safeguards are there for both.
Well, the safeguards are always there if the system works properly and efficiently. And we certainly have an ample demonstration, have we not, Mr. Buckley, that the system fell down very, very badly in certain recent cases.
There have been some very bothersome, worrisome failures of the system. And
you've had an allegation, and then allegation 5 years ago, a teacher cleared, and then all of a sudden he's involved in a whole rash of things.
And usually in another jurisdiction, and that has been the problem.
Correct. Go ahead from Nelson.
Yes. I'm a first-time caller. I think the issue is bigger than children, and I'll make my point very clearly. One is that people are denied protection, not only children who are voiceless, but handicapped adults who also cannot speak for themselves have no legal status, as do children in this instance. And I heard a woman, unfortunately I just tuned in lately, say that what is needed is protection. I might suggest that a consideration of the new government, whoever that might be, is an Individual Rights Protection Act.
Okay, well, I'm much obliged, but he's getting off the topic. Difficult to feed that into our specific discussion. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, given that it appears it is very difficult to get rid of a teacher that is not doing the job properly, I would like to know from both of the participants what their recommendation would be to a parent who has a suspicion that there is something going on that is not appropriate. I'll hang up and listen to the answer, but I'm sure there are a number of parents out there who would like to know in a very basic answer to that question. Should they go to the police, or should they take the chance of going to the school principal, who is bound by codes of ethics and what have you?
Good point, ma'am, and we'll get them to answer. We've only got a couple of minutes with them.
Well, I think probably the first thing that a parent might want to do where he or she suspects an abuse exists would be to follow the procedures of the law and is report that to the Ministry of Social Services and Housing. And there are some pretty clear procedures set down through that process. That's one route. You know, certainly a parent could follow the other routes, which is another route, which would be to get in touch with school board officials and follow that route. But certainly if you approach the Ministry of sorry, I keep wanting to call it Human Resources, Social Services and Housing.
What would you do? What do you want to see parents do?
If the system were working properly, a single report to one person in authority would result in all others who have to know being informed as well. So
on the allegations?
On the allegations. Now, I don't think it's reasonable for us to expect that a parent will make 4 or 5 different reports, one to the ministry, one to the superintendent, one to the RCMP. That's not reasonable. Parents must have some place where they can go, knowing that if they make one report to one person in authority, the matter will be dealt with. And that may be either the police, or the ministry, or the superintendent of the local school district. But one of those reports should be made.
I've got to clip you there. I would do 2 things. I'd go to the principal of the school, the superintendent of the school board, and the police. Look, I'm grateful for you, and at least you deserve credit for facing up to the problems which have beset you in this area. My thanks to Elsie McMurphy and to Mr. Buckley, and I'll be back after the break. Bob Pascoe is the chief of the Oregon Jack Creek Band at Ashcroft, but he represents more than that. He came to attention, first of all, to me anyway, on the blockading of the CNR track near Spence's Bridge. And this might give you an idea of the area I'm talking about on the protest against the twin tracking. Alliance of Tribal Councils, you represent more than one group.
Right.
Which groups?
There's the Shuswaps, the Stalo, and then Shakapmu. There are three distinct tribal groups.
Now, are you negotiating, or have you filed a formal land claim for this Alliance of Tribal Councils up to now?
Like with our tribal council, we have. It has not been accepted. However, I can't really speak for the other two tribal councils, but collectively, we have an injunction. We have a case against CNR dealing with their construction plans to twin track the CNR.
Well, you can imagine what the CNR thought, or what the guy in the street thought, when he saw your people blockading the tracks. Why did you do that? And are you winning or losing on that battle?
Well, first of all, CNR's plans to twin track were not compatible with the uses that we Indian people have for the river, and like there are plans to obstruct our passage to the river. There are plans to obstruct the passage of the salmon or of the resource both up and down the river, and those things are not they're not acceptable. They're not acceptable to Indian people. They're not acceptable to other people that use the river, being the sports fishermen and just recreational use.
Now, where do you stand on that now? Because I would have thought, having blockaded the track, the authorities would have moved in and said, get the blazes off it, and you'd have lost the battle. But you haven't lost the battle. What has happened on that?
Okay, we were successful in getting an injunction against CNR to withhold their construction over a certain stretch of the track, so that I guess to give us time so that we can prepare for the court case that's pending.
And the court case, has the injunction been upheld against you, or are you free still to blockade the track?
Well, there's I guess the injunction puts us in a position where we don't have to go to the track and do those kinds of things.
Oh, the CNR has backed off?
Yes.
And they're not touching this stretch of the river until when?
I guess until after the court case.
So you've made a big step forward in that you've shown to the courts that you're entitled to an injunction as of this moment to stop any deterioration of the fishing for everybody because of their construction work and the twin tracking.
Right.
Now, where do you go from here now? If you win that, I suppose they'll have to change the twin track route, won't they?
I guess, basically, Jack, our position has been, or my position has been this, that if this country needs that twin track, then they should do it properly. They shouldn't use the archaic methods that they used back in the early 1900s to put in a railway. And that's the kind of system that they want to use today. And that is what we objected to at the very beginning. You know, if this country really needs it, give it to them. But give it to them in such a way that it doesn't hinder, it doesn't affect negatively those people along the river that have rights. Rights. You know, whether it's an Indian person or whether it's a non-Indian person, people do have rights.
So in this case, you're acting for the overall public good. You're quite convinced of that?
I'm quite convinced of it. The users of the resource.
And the CNR are going to have to change their technique or change their route.
Exactly. We even went as far as to show them how they could improve their design. We did a redesign on that section, 59 to 69. It was not accepted. And we tried to negotiate these things before we even got to court. You know, we used the bureaucratic system. And
you failed. And you had to go to court.
And then we used the political system. Now we're, you know, and a group of combinations.
You're one step ahead just now. The courts are going to have to rule on what the CNR are going to do. That's
exactly.
Now, what about the fishing, though? Are you not involved in much of the fishing controversy that's been spreading right down here over the bylaws?
I feel we are. I think we're governed by the same Indian Act. I think we're governed by, we're affected by the same Fisheries Act. So actually, whatever happens within bylaws certainly does affect us.
Now, what are your biggest problems, or say, in your own particular band that you can tell me about, Oregon Jack Creek Band at Ashcroft? Do you feel that you should get a land claim settlement for that band?
Well, I feel that, that we have rights as Indian people, and I feel that there has to be, those things have to be dealt with because they've never been dealt with. And this is one of the reasons why we have a confrontational situation dealing with CN, is there's a lot of things that have happened in the past that I think the public has a right to know what it is, but those kinds of things create the problems. And in terms of your question, you know, does the Oregon Jack Creek Indian Band have a claim? I think we do. I think we do have a claim. I think we have a claim that has to be heard. I think there are some things that have happened to that band that should be dealt with.
What about the economic situation in the Oregon Jack Creek Band? Is it bad or good or average?
Well, I guess it's average for an Indian community.
But how much below the average of a non-Indian community is that? Quite considerably.
I suppose it depends how you look at it. Depends how you try to evaluate it.
When you meet CN workers or non-Indians, how do they look at you? Do they look at you as a spoiler who's trying to do them out of their jobs at the moment, and does it create resentment?
It has created resentment, Jack. You know, something that I don't cherish. I know that people feel that you know, we're trying to prevent you know, sort of the expansion of CNR, and it would hinder their employment. Yes, you know, there are some negative feelings.
But your mind is made up. You will fight this court case to make quite sure that any construction by the CNR and the twin tracking does not interfere with the fishery and your way of life.
Right.
How important is the fishery to your way of life?
I think that you know, over the past, in the past years, the fishery resource was part of our economy, and a very, very strong part, because if you look back in the records, it shows there that we used that for trade. You know, it's the same thing as people use the dollar today. That's what we used back then. And I think that over the years that's sort of eroded, but I don't think we can overlook that was part of the overall.
So you're going to keep up your determined front in your alliance of tribal councils, and you will. Oh, this twin tracking is not actually on your land. It merely interferes with your way of doing business.
No, it does. There's three parts to three areas of effect. Number one, the CNR affects our reserve lands. That's number one. Number two, CNR affects our reserve fishery, or any construction, not only CN, but any construction of that kind. And thirdly, the whole Aboriginal aspects of the Indian claims.
How many people in the three bands?
Or three tribes?
Three tribes.
Directly affected would probably be around 10,000.
Unemployment, how much?
I really couldn't give you the figure, Jack.
It's not good.
It's not good, no.
My thanks to Bob Pascoe of, let me get it right, Chief of the Oregon Jack Creek Band at Ashcroft, and represented the Alliance of Tribal Councils.
Right.
After the break. Tomorrow night, I'm going to have a little levity with an overweight nutritionist who wrote the Pritikin Diet. Not me, somebody else, Karen Owens. And going to follow the news tomorrow night as well. And we're going to continue with our well-received series on the land claims of various bands. And tomorrow night, we'll be talking to Sophie Pierre, chief, I think the only woman chief in British Columbia, of the Kootenay India Area Council. And other things. At 5 p.m. precisely, stay tuned for the news.